I can hear the demons call when they do what they do. And now I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. I just gotta get through, I just gotta get through. Cause I feel like taking off, find a place with a view. The pain is never gonna stop if it's controlling you. I know that time can heal it all, I just gotta get through. Sometimes I feel like all is lost, but I know it's not true. I wanna put up all my walls cause I'm not in the mood, but then I cut myself off from the rest of the room. I know that time can heal it all if you're patient and soon. It can all be worth it, all the searching. Pain is never really permanent, but damn it hurts, man. I could feel all of the turbulence and it's concerning. I've been searching for a purpose, I hope it's worth it. This society is really trying me. Ain't no hide and seek, I hide to be far from anxiety. I need my space, I need my privacy. I need some silence, please, you're all too loud. You don't speak quietly, opinions violently thrown across every surface. It makes me nervous, it's the world honestly burning. That's all I'm learning, hope that we can make a turn and start reversing. All our minds have put the work in, we got some work, man.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Warrior Within. Like every episode, viewer discretion is strongly advised. I started doing this show because I want to empower people. I want people to understand that it's okay to talk about life circumstance, and I am no stranger to sensitive subjects. When I first came up with the idea for this show, The Warrior Within, like I said, my idea was to empower people and make people realize that they're not going through things alone, that it is okay to talk about it and it is okay to get help. Today is one of the most sensitive subjects that I'm going to be talking about, but it needs to be talked about. I have to warn you that this subject today is probably going to make you angry. It's probably going to make you upset, and it could even make you sick to your stomach. I will do my very best not to divulge too much graphic information, but I am going to be talking about rape today. My experience with this subject and what happened to me in my life when that happened to me. And I am also going to say that, rape doesn't just happen to females, it happens to men as well. But because society has made men out to be the stronger gender, that, they're considered weak if they admit something like this has happened to them, they don't feel comfortable coming forward and telling their story. And we need to make that, more normal. We need to make it to where men feel comfortable talking about what happened to them and about, getting help. We don't need to see them as being weak for talking about it. We don't need to see them as being weak for seeking help for when that happens. Before I get into how and when it happened to me and how I made it through that situation, I do have to tell you a little bit of my background because it goes with, what I'm about to tell you. I was brought up in a religious family, and it's in our belief system that you don't have sex until you're married. So I had every intention on keeping that guideline. I had every intention on staying pure until I was married. Sometimes that doesn't work out in life. And, I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And I want to empower other people to get help, to talk about, the situations that need to be talked about. And rape is definitely a situation where you need to talk to somebody and you need to get help. So like I said, I was brought up in a religious family. It's in our religious belief system that we don't have sex until we're married. And, I kind of was going to stick with that unless I found, the person that I thought that I was going to marry and be with for the rest of my life. So, I was a small town girl. I grew up in a very small town, grew up in a religious family, and, was going to stick with my religious beliefs. I went to a community college first, never had a serious relationship, didn't even have a serious relationship, didn't have any boyfriends. It's not for lack of guys being interested in me. I have had guys ask me out when I was in college. I had guys ask me out when I was in high school, but I was more focused on, getting a degree and making it, like getting out of that small town. I didn't want to be stuck in that small town for the rest of my life. I wanted to break free from that small town. So I did go to a community college when I first started my college career, and I got an Associates of Arts degree, and I took that degree and transferred to a university. And this is where the story essentially begins. Like I said, I have never been in a serious relationship. I was a virgin when I went off to Quincy University, and I know a lot of people, would probably make fun of that. But it's okay. This is my story, my life, and it is how it is. There's no shame in saving yourself until you're married. It's up to each individual. But I didn't set off to go to the university, and I am going to be changing names in this story for privacy purposes. But I did not start off going to the university with the idea of getting a boyfriend. I started off with the idea of getting a degree and getting a really good job in that degree. I didn't want to get married until I was like 25. I didn't want to have kids until I was like 26. That's just how my mind went. Like, I wasn't interested in having a relationship while I was trying to earn my degree. But I thought that if I did meet someone, that was just an extra bonus. I did end up making friends in the university, but you have to figure that this was the first time that I was away from home. This was the first time that I wasn't, within the next room of my parents. Like, this is the first time that I was away from my parents. And, it was about 6 hours away from where I lived. And luckily, I have an aunt who lives in the town that I went to the university to. So, there at least was that. I did have family in that town, but this was very, very scary, leaving home for the first time into the big world of university life. So I stayed in my dorm probably the first week of university life because I was scared. I just went to class, ate food, came back to my dorm, and watched MTV too. That's what I did. But I ended up making friends with some of the girls on my dorm floor. And through those girls, I met my ex, and we are going to call him John Doe to protect his identity. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to make you extremely mad at him. So yeah, I was a naive small town girl who had never really been out in the big world. This was my first time being away from home, so I was pretty naive, lived a sheltered life. I ended up making friends with this guy, and we were good friends in the beginning, and then we were going away for summer. We didn't really date before we went away for summer, but, we kept in contact during the summer. We talked on the phone, we talked on the internet, things like that. We kind of dated, but we weren't really, an item before we went away for summer. And then we came back from the 2 months or however long off you have for summer, and we had been talking all summer on the phone, and we had been talking about things. And he came back and he proposed to me, and that should have been the first red flag right there. We had only been in a relationship for like probably, I want to say 7 months, 8 months at the time. So like not in a serious relationship yet, basically holding hands, smooching each other. That's about it. It wasn't that serious yet. And when he came back for the summer, he proposed to me. That should have set off a red flag right there, but because I'm a small town girl and was naive and never really had a boyfriend before this, it did not set off a red flag. So I was like, oh yes, of course, all excited about that. And he treated me pretty well up to this point. But then after he got the ring on my finger, that's when he started pressuring me into having sex and doing things that I was not ready to do. It happened probably, we had been back in school for probably about a month maybe at the time, and we had been engaged for maybe like a month, and he pressured me into having sex. So he like raped me at this point. I didn't know whether or not to consider it rape, but I had talked to one of my best friends at the time, and they had said, yes, that what you're describing to me is date rape. So John Doe, my ex, pressured me into it. He had said, all these horrible things to me. He had called me names. He had said all these degrading things to me, scared me half to death. I wasn't in my right mindset. I couldn't even tell him, no, get off of me. I couldn't even tell him, I don't want to do this. I'm not ready to do this. He pressured me into having sex, and he raped me. I ended up getting pregnant because of this rape, and because he was very abusive. He was very emotionally abusive. He was very physically abusive, verbally abusive. Like, he made fun of the fact that he took my virginity. He made fun of the fact that I had never been with anybody else. He made fun of my friends who were virgins. He called them names and made fun of them. He went back to the dorm room and bragged about, taking my virginity to his roommate. And he bragged about it, essentially just bragged about it, and made me feel like a piece of meat. And it was a very scary, horrible situation. And because of the religious situation that I was brought up in, I thought that you had to stay with the person that you shared that with, even though he raped me and took advantage of me and took that from me. I thought that I had to stay with him. He was violent. He had slammed me on the bed at one point. He had slammed me against the wall at one point, and I was terrified of him. Like I said, it was like I was in a fog and didn't have the ability to say, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not ready to do this. And it was a very, very scary situation. I ended up breaking up with him, but because I had that mindset that I'm supposed to stay with the person who takes that from me, who I share that with, we ended up getting back together. And we got back together because I had found out in the meantime that I was pregnant. He got me pregnant, and we went through, trying to have a relationship. And it wasn't a relationship. That's not what it was. He abused me. He made fun of me. He called me names. He made me feel like I was stupid. He made me feel like I was a piece of trash. All this horrible stuff. We ended up losing the baby. I ended up having a miscarriage, and I have talked about this in the past, but I haven't went into complete detail. But we ended up having a miscarriage, and it's horrible for me to say this, but I kind of see that as a godsend, because I wouldn't have wanted to have a baby with that type of person. He was a monster. He was a terrible, terrible monster. And like I said, I'm leaving some of the details out because they are too graphic, and I'm trying to protect you all from that type of graphic violence. Like I said, he made fun of me. I had gotten proud that I had lost weight, before we got back together. We got back together probably like 3 times because my mentality of thinking that I had to be with the person that I shared that with. He was my first serious relationship, not realizing that's not how a relationship is supposed to be. You're not supposed to feel pressured in something you're not ready to do. You're not supposed to be taken advantage of in a relationship. That's not a normal relationship. So yeah, we ended up getting back together probably like 3 times. And I know that I'm not categorizing this properly. I'm not putting the timeline properly. This happened probably about 20 years ago. Like I said, I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. Yes, rape did happen to me. And when I tried to tell the university what had happened to me, that he was abusive and that he had done this to me, like, I didn't seek help right after it happened because I was like, well, we're engaged. That's just normal. You're supposed to do that with the person that you're engaged to. I didn't think of it as being abnormal until I had told my friend what happened, and he said, no, he raped you. It was date rape. You have a right to consider it that way. And, when we finally broke up for good, I told him, I said, stay away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't even want to be friends with you. I'm done of you. I'm done with your abuse. I'm done of you belittling me. I'm done with you treating me the way that you treat me. You treat me like trash. And we were pretty much done, like, after the second time that we started dating. Like, I had invited him to my mom and dad's home during Christmas because he didn't have no other place to go. Like, he couldn't make it back home, and I felt bad. And so we were dating at that time, and I had invited him to my parents' home. And he abused my mom and dad's dog, which I will never, ever, ever forgive myself for bringing that person into our home and for him to abuse my mom and dad's dog. My mom and dad had went to town to get groceries, and I said, I'm going to take a quick shower to clean up, before my mom and dad comes home, clean up for, family dinner. And I was just went in to take a simple shower, and my mom and dad said, let the dog out while we're gone, put him out on his tie out. And I don't know what this person did to my mom and dad's dog, but my mom and dad's dog hated him after he had put the dog outside. I think that he might have thrown the dog. I don't know what he did, and it makes me sick to my stomach to even think about that dog being put into that situation. So he didn't only abuse me, he probably abused my mom and dad's dog, and I'm never going to forgive myself for that. He slammed me against the wall while I was at my parents'. He tried to get my dad to call the cops on me. He's like, she's being psycho and all this stuff. I'd had enough of his bullcrap, and I was tired of him, belittling me, treating me the way he was treating me in my own home. And I was trying to defend the dog and tell him, you don't treat, I don't know what you did to that dog, but he doesn't like you for a reason, and you don't treat them that way. And I wanted to kick him out, but, it was the middle of winter, and we didn't want, a person to get sick or hospitalized because I had kicked them out, but they deserved to have been kicked out of our house. So needless to say, we broke up during Christmas break. and the cops were called. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges against this person, and I really wish that I would have pressed charges against them, because at least that would have been on a police report. But I said, no, it's fine. I just wanted to get through the holiday season, and I wanted to get back to college. So we ended up breaking up during Christmas break, and we drove back in separate cars. And my dad basically told him not to talk to me anymore, not to mess with me anymore. And we ended up getting back together probably a month or two later. And that's why the university didn't believe me when I said he's abusive, he raped me, he had done all this stuff to me in the past. They didn't believe me, and our friends didn't really want to believe that he was capable of doing such monstrous things. So I've lost some friends because of this situation, but, are they really your friends if they're going to believe a monster story over your own? It is what it is. I've lost friends. I've had people attack me because I've said that this happened to me, but, the true friends and the people who are there for me stuck around, and I found out who my true friends were through this situation. Like I said, I'd had a miscarriage. Me and him actually lost a baby, and it's horrible, but it's a godsend that, I didn't have that baby with him, because I wouldn't have wanted to raise a baby with him, and I wouldn't want to had him be a baby's father, because he was a very horrible person. The university didn't believe anything that I had to say. Anything that I had to say about this situation, they didn't believe me. Some of our friends didn't believe me. I got rumors spread around about me at the university because of John Doe, my ex. He said that I was psychotic. He said that that I wasn't actually pregnant. That rumor went around. He said that, basically he made me out to be a liar, a psycho, and a slut. And he was the first person that I had ever been with, and I wouldn't have been with him if he would not have taken advantage of me. So that was a very, very sickening situation. It was a very horrible situation. I wanted to transfer to a different university, but I had already had so many credits put into that university. I had already had so much work done at that university. It wouldn't have been worth changing to another university. So I had to just get through it. I had to deal with the rumors, and I had to deal with him still. I know that I was staying in the guys' dorm during summer, because that's where they would put you during the summertime, is they would put you in the guys' dorm. Guys' side of the dorm, I should say, because it was a co-ed dormitory. And he happened to be friends with one of my suite mates, and he was told to stay away from me. And he said that that's fine. Like, he didn't care, he didn't stay away from me. He purposely would make himself known that he was up in the suite. And, there was just a lock protecting me from him. And he could have very easily broke that lock open. And it was a very scary situation, because I had called the police in that town. I had told them, hey, can I get a restraining order against him? And they pretty much told me, unless I have physical bruises on me and proof that he had been abusing me recently, that I cannot get a restraining order. So I pretty much told the police, so if he kills me in my dorm, what are you going to tell my mom and dad? What are you going to tell them if he beats me up, what can be done about this? The university did nothing about it. The police did nothing about it. And I was pretty much on my own with this situation. This person had actually told my best friend, because he was friends with them as well. He had told my best friend that if he does this off the campus, where nobody can see him, that there's nothing that nobody can do about it. And that makes it sound like he had intentions of killing me and dumping my body in the river. I really don't know. So it was a very bad situation that I went through. It was a very scary situation that I went through. And, it didn't deter me from trying to talk to people. It didn't deter me from telling my story. It didn't, prevent me from doing great things in life. Like I said, I'm not a victim. I am a survivor. I went on to be a radio DJ. I went on to play in a jazz ensemble. I got my degree. This person did not get their degree. They didn't graduate from the university. They ended up going off into the military. And believe you me, I threw a party when they left, because they were no longer in my hair, and I no longer had to deal with that person. But truth be known, he tried contacting me when I got in a relationship with my now husband. He tried contacting me, tried talking to me again after he found out that I was in a relationship, and I completely ignored him. Me and my husband met, and I had told my husband that this had happened to me in the past. I'm very, very nervous when it comes to being in relationships, because this has happened to me in my past. And he told me his story, and it's his story to tell, but I can tell you that he went through a similar situation with his exes. So like I said, it doesn't just happen to females, it happens to males as well. And they don't feel comfortable telling their story, even more so than, when a female's telling her story of rape, they don't feel comfortable talking about it. And a lot of time they stay silent because they're scared to talk about it. They're scared that, of the repercussions of admitting that it happened to them. They're terrified. Can you imagine how a man feels, when he's talking about it? A lot of men don't come forward to tell their story because they are supposed to be seen as being strong. They are supposed to be seen as, don't cry, oh, a woman beat him up, a woman took advantage of him. That's why men don't come forward, and we need to make it, normalize it for men to talk about this sort of thing, because it's important that they get help just like the females get help, when they tell their story. I did seek help. I did talk to a counselor at the university, but the sad part is this particular counselor was my ex's teacher. And, so that's a conflict of interest. I didn't really have anybody that I could report this to. I didn't really have anybody who, helped me through this process, but there are people out there that can help you. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Don't be afraid to get help. It's important. I am telling you all my situation and my story and what happened to me, and everybody's story is different. Sometimes it's more violent than, my story, but it all boils down to this. You need to get help. You need to talk about it. You need to make people aware that this happened. You need to get help. I know a lot of times, like in the court cases, when a female goes to court because a man had raped her, a lot of times things don't get done about it. You know, the university that I went to did try to sweep it under the rug. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want, oh my gosh, this happened at our university. What if this gets out? What if this story gets out? How's that going to make our university look? You don't need to keep silent. You need to tell your story. And the more people who tell their story, the stronger it becomes. We can help each other through these situations. We can help each other tell our stories. We need to make it more normal for people to come forward and tell their stories. That's why I created this show to begin with, because I want you all to know that you're not alone. There's no shame in telling your story. No shame in this happening to you. It's terrible that it has happened to you, but there's no shame in talking about it. There's no shame in getting help for it. You need to talk to somebody. You need to get help for it. And then you can heal. That's when the healing process begins. I would not be as outspoken as I am now if I didn't go through what I went through. It's terrible that I went through it. It's awful, it's sickening, it's upsetting, and it makes you angry that I went through what I went through. But it happened, and I'm a stronger person because I went through that, and I'm a stronger person because I have talked about it. I have told my story, and I have gotten help for it. So please do not be ashamed to get help for it. Don't be ashamed to tell your story. There are people willing to listen, and there are people willing to help. And like I said, it doesn't happen to just females, it happens to men. I'm going to say that over and over and over again, because this needs to become normalized. This needs to become something that people are more comfortable in talking about. I know that rape is a very, very sensitive subject. It's a hard word to even say. When it happened to me, I couldn't say the word rape. It's a terrible, terrible word to say, and it's an awful thing to go through, but it happened to me. It happened to me, and I'm going to make sure that it does not happen to my daughter. When my daughter grows up and she starts asking me stories, asking me about things, I'm going to be honest with her. I'm going to tell her, don't let people take advantage of you. Don't let people make you feel less than what you are. You are perfect just the way you are. You don't let anybody push you into doing anything that you are not comfortable with doing. People need to tell their kids that. People need to, put their foot down, and people need to be comfortable talking about life situations, because how are we going to be able to help each other if we don't talk about it? I got help from my friend who I talked about it with, and I am always going to be grateful to my friend because he helped me through that situation. And when I told my husband about it, he's helped me through that situation. It's life scars, but I have gotten stronger because of what I have been through. I don't want any of you to feel sorry for me. I don't want any of you to, have pity for me whatsoever. I am a stronger person because of what I've been through, and this is just part of my life. This is part of my story, and it has helped mold me into the person that I am now. I am a stronger person, and I think that, with being a stronger person, I'm a better mom to my child, because I can tell her, what happens in life, and I can prepare her for life's journey. And she is a very strong, independent little girl because, I've taught her to not let people push her around, to, march to the beat of her own drum. I hope that this episode was educational and informational, and in the very least, it has empowered you, has made you realize that you're not going through this alone, that there are other people that have been through it. I'm always around. You could always try to get a hold of me through my Facebook. I will always, be willing to lend an ear to somebody who needs to talk, because you need somebody to talk to about your story. As always, love, hugs, and blessings.